At this exact moment, billions of people are connected to something they cannot see. A message can travel from Ghana to the United States in less than a second. A video recorded in a small room can be watched by someone on the other side of the planet. A person can transfer money, speak to a stranger, buy a product, or learn almost anything without leaving their home. We call it the internet, and today, it feels almost inevitable, but it wasn't. There was a time when computers couldn't talk to each other. A time when sending information between cities was painfully slow. A time when the idea of connecting every computer on Earth sounded almost impossible. So how did we get from isolated machines to a network connecting billions of people? The strange part is that the internet wasn't created for social media. It wasn't created for Google. It wasn't created for YouTube. And it wasn't even originally created for ordinary people. To understand how the internet began, we have to go back to a world where computers were enormous, expensive machines that could barely communicate with one another. The story begins in the middle of the 20th century. In the 1950s, computers were nothing like the devices we carry in our pockets today. Some filled entire rooms. They consumed enormous amounts of electricity. If one computer had information another computer needed, there was no simple way to send it. They were expensive enough that only governments, universities, and large corporations could afford them. And most importantly, they worked alone. You couldn't open a browser. There was no email. There was no cloud. There wasn't even a network. But then something happened that would completely change the direction of computers. The Cold War, the United States, and the Soviet Union were locked in a technological and military competition. In 1957, the Soviet Union launched Sputnik, the world's first artificial satellite. For Americans, it was a shock. The Soviets had demonstrated that they could launch technology into space. The United States needed to catch up, and Washington began investing heavily in science and technology. One of the organizations created during this period was the Advanced Research Projects Agency. Its mission was simple: develop technologies that could give the United States an advantage. But one of the problems scientists faced was surprisingly basic. Computers were becoming more powerful, but they were still isolated. Researchers at different universities might have completely different computers. If one scientist developed something useful, another scientist somewhere else might have to recreate the same work. There had to be a better way. What if computers could communicate? What if researchers could share information between distant machines? It sounded simple, but making it work was another matter entirely. There was one major problem. Traditional telephone networks were designed for voice. Computers didn't communicate like people. They produced data, huge amounts of it, and sending all that information across a network required a completely different approach. Then, in the 1960s, researchers began developing an idea that would become one of the foundations of the internet: packet switching. Instead of sending an entire message as one continuous stream, information could be broken into small pieces called packets. Each packet could travel through the network independently. At the destination, the pieces could be put back together. Think about that. A message could be broken apart, travel through different paths, and somehow arrive as one complete message. It was an unusual idea, but it had a major advantage. If one path became unavailable, the information could potentially take another route. The network didn't have to depend on a single connection. This changed everything, because now researchers weren't simply imagining computers communicating. They were imagining a network that could survive problems, and that idea would soon be tested. In 1969, ARPA connected for computers at different American research institutions. The locations included UCLA, the Stanford Research Institute, UC Santa Barbara, and the University of Utah. The network became known as ARPANET. It is widely considered one of the most important ancestors of today's internet, but its first famous message was almost laughably simple. A computer at UCLA attempted to send the word login to a computer at Stanford. The system crashed after only 2 letters. The first message sent across this revolutionary network was essentially, "Hello." That's it. 2 letters. But those 2 letters represented something much bigger. For the first time, computers in distant locations had communicated over a network designed for sharing data. Nobody knew exactly where this would lead, and that's what makes the story so fascinating. The people building ARPANET weren't trying to create the internet we know today. They were solving much smaller problems. Researchers wanted to share expensive computing resources. Scientists wanted to communicate. Universities wanted to exchange information. But once computers learned how to communicate, a much bigger question appeared. Could different networks communicate with each other? Because ARPANET was only one network. Other networks were being created around the world. If each network used different rules, they couldn't easily communicate. It was like having several countries with completely different languages and no translators. The solution came from 2 researchers, Vint Cerf and Bob Kahn. During the 1970s, They developed a system of protocols designed to allow separate networks to communicate. The technology eventually became known as TCP/IP. It was a crucial breakthrough. Instead of creating one giant network, engineers could connect many independent networks together, network to network, then more networks, then more. This is where the name begins to make sense. The internet was essentially a network of networks, but there was still a problem. Even if computers could communicate, ordinary people had no easy way to use this growing system. The internet was still mostly a world of researchers, engineers, and universities. You needed technical knowledge. You often had to type commands. There were no familiar web pages, no search engines, no social media, no colorful icons leading you from one place to another. Then, in 1989, a British computer scientist working at CERN proposed an idea that would transform everything. His name was Tim Berners-Lee. He wasn't trying to build the internet. The internet already existed. He wanted to make information easier to organize and access. His solution was the World Wide Web. And this distinction matters. The internet and the World Wide Web are not the same thing. The internet is the underlying network. The web is one of the systems that runs on top of it. Think of the internet as the roads. The web is one of the biggest transportation systems using those roads. Berners-Lee created technologies that allowed documents to be connected through hyperlinks. A person could click on one piece of information and immediately jump to another. No command line, no complicated instructions, just a link. This decision seemed small at the time. It wasn't. The web turned the internet from a specialized communication system into something ordinary people could actually explore. And then Berners-Lee made another decision that would shape the future. He didn't keep the technology locked away. The World Wide Web was made available without licensing fees. Anyone could build on it. Anyone could create a website. Anyone could connect information to other information. The door was open, and millions of people were about to walk through it. In the early 1990s, the web began spreading beyond research institutions. The first websites were simple, mostly text, a few images, basic links, nothing like the internet we know today. But users quickly understood the potential. A website could be about anything: a university, a newspaper, a hobby, a business, a person. The internet was no longer just a network for machines. It was becoming a place for people. Then came the browser, and this changed everything again. Instead of learning complicated commands, users could open a graphical interface and click their way through the web. Netscape Navigator became one of the most famous early browsers. Millions of people began discovering websites. Companies realized something extraordinary. The internet wasn't just a technology, it was a new marketplace. Businesses rushed online, then came search engines. Yahoo, AltaVista, and eventually, in 1998, Google. Google's founders, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, developed a powerful way to organize the rapidly expanding web. Suddenly, finding information became dramatically easier. But the biggest transformation was still ahead, because the internet was about to stop being something people visited from a computer. It was about to become something they carried everywhere. And when that happened, the line between the online world and the real world would almost completely disappear. The internet was about to leave the computer behind. In the 2000s, broadband connections became faster, computers became cheaper, and millions of people began spending more of their lives online. But something was still missing. You had to sit down at a computer to enter the digital world. Then the phone changed that. As mobile networks improved and smartphones became more powerful, the internet stopped being a place you visited. It became something you carried. You could check an email while walking down the street, look up a location from inside a car, talk to someone thousands of kilometers away while sitting at home. And then came the smartphone revolution. The launch of Apple's iPhone in 2007 helped change people's expectations of what a phone could be. It wasn't simply a device for calling. It was a computer connected to the internet. Suddenly, the network that had once connected research laboratories was sitting inside people's pockets. But this created another transformation. The internet was no longer just about information. It became about participation. People didn't simply read websites. They began creating them. Blogs exploded. Online forums grew. Then social networks appeared. People created profiles, uploaded photographs, shared opinions, and built communities with strangers they had never met. Facebook expanded rapidly. YouTube turned ordinary people into broadcasters. Twitter transformed short messages into a global conversation. And suddenly, the internet had become something nobody had originally designed it to be. A place where almost anyone could speak to almost everyone. But there was a hidden consequence. The more people connected, the more valuable information became. Every search, every click, every video watched, every purchase, every location. The internet began generating an enormous amount of data. Companies discovered that this data could reveal what people wanted, where they went, and what they were likely to buy. The internet had started as a way to share information. Now information itself had become an industry. And the transformation didn't stop there. Cloud computing changed another fundamental idea. For decades, your files lived on your computer. If the computer broke, you could lose everything. But now, documents, photographs, videos, and applications could live on remote servers. You could open the same file from different devices. Your information followed you. The physical computer became less important. The network became more important. Then streaming changed entertainment. People no longer needed to wait for television schedules. They could watch what they wanted whenever they wanted. Music moved from CDs to online platforms. Movies moved from shelves to servers. News moved from newspapers to websites and social media. Shopping moved from physical stores to online marketplaces. The internet was no longer an industry. It was becoming the infrastructure underneath almost every industry. But there was one problem. The more dependent society became on the internet, the more vulnerable society became when it failed. A network outage could stop businesses. A cyber attack could shut down critical systems. A problem inside a data center could affect millions of users. The same network that connected the world also created new risks. Cybercrime became a global industry. Hackers could attack systems from thousands of kilometers away. Governments began developing cyber capabilities. Companies spent billions protecting their networks. The internet had created an entirely new battlefield. And then came another question. Who actually controls the internet? There is no single building where the internet is stored. No world government owns it. No single company controls every connection. Instead, it is made up of thousands of networks operated by governments, companies, universities, telecommunications providers, and individuals. That decentralized structure is one of the internet's greatest strengths. It is also one of its greatest complications, because different countries have different ideas about what the internet should be. Some emphasize openness. Others impose strict controls. Some governments block websites. Others monitor online activity. The same technology that allows people to communicate freely can also be used for surveillance and censorship. This is one of the great contradictions of the internet. It was designed to connect people, but connection does not automatically create freedom. And yet, despite all of these problems, the network continues to expand. Today, billions of people use the internet. It powers banks, hospitals, airports, factories, schools, governments, businesses, and almost every major digital service people depend on. Even artificial intelligence increasingly depends on the infrastructure created by decades of networking. But perhaps the strangest part of the story is how ordinary it has become. The engineers who connected those first for computers in 1969 could hardly have imagined a world where a teenager in Kenya could upload a video and have someone in Japan watch it seconds later. They weren't building YouTube. They weren't building social media. They weren't building online shopping. They were simply trying to make computers communicate. Small decisions created larger systems. Larger systems created new possibilities. And eventually, those possibilities changed everyday life. The first ARPANET message was only 2 letters. Hello. But today, billions of people send trillions of pieces of information across networks every day. A tiny experiment became a global infrastructure. And that may be the most important lesson in the history of the internet. The technologies that change the world don't always begin with people trying to change the world. Sometimes they begin with a small problem, a few researchers, a few machines, and a strange idea that seems almost too simple to matter. Then someone connects one computer to another. Another network joins them, then another. And eventually, without anyone fully realizing it, the world itself becomes connected. The internet didn't appear one day. It grew, one connection at a time. And now, every time you send a message, watch a video, search for something, or simply open this conversation, you are using the result of that decades-long experiment. The network that once struggled to send to letters has become the invisible system, carrying modern civilization. And perhaps the most remarkable thing about the internet is not that it connected the world's computers. It's that, eventually, it connected the world itself.